Howdy chaps, and welcome back to 2021. Well, actually not welcome back, we're starting fresh on 2021. This is a new year, new day, new everything. It's been a good break, especially from doing YouTube videos. We've gotten a lot done in the past couple of weeks. Last thing you would have seen was the XB's petrol tank. Not petrol tank, but I did do that. Last thing you would have seen was the XB Falcon's exhaust, and since then I managed to score a really good second-hand petrol tank for the XB from Marketplace. Which ended up being a bit of a fiasco due to the fact that the new fuel tank sender unit seals that you get are absolute garbage. Don't fit, don't do anything. So in my XB is a new tank that's not inflated with a new sender unit but a 40-year-old seal, because the new ones are absolute garbage, like garbage. I'll insert a clip right now of what happens when you put in a new seal. So if you gathered your little thoughts by that, that's a new seal not sealing, or even at all. And yeah, you might go, oh, but you obviously didn't get it right. But no, that's after 4 different attempts of trying to get it right. It just doesn't fit in the groove properly. And I think the only way you'd ever get it to sit properly is if you had the tank out of the car, standing up in, and you very, very carefully sat the sender unit in. Also, the new sender units don't fit real well either. They don't. They need to be tweaked enough so you can fit them in. But yes, that was less than fun. Side note, another amazing thing is I have some new stickers, finally, some merchandise. I'll throw up a couple of photos now of what they look like on some cars. They look pretty good, and it says, yep, definitely a 351. Yes, I thought that was a little cheeky little stab at how many 302s over the years have been painted up and sold as 51s, which is a lot. In the last couple of days we've been running this supposedly good 351, and I must tell you that good runners don't exist. Not anymore, they don't. This supposed good runner is pretty much garbage. But we have been attempting to do a really quick rectify. I'll show you a clip of this engine running in a second and you'll be like, wow, that's bad. And there you have it. There's the motor running on 4.5 cylinders on a Cleveland. You must say that's a pretty robust engine to be able to do that. But I know for a fact that 3 of those cylinders are doing nothing. The ignition system is perfect, and we double check that because when it's running you can pull a plug, and if it doesn't make any difference, the cylinder is not doing anything. So to double check, we pulled the plug, put a spark plug in, it sat on the rock cover, and it was sparking away. So we know the lead was working, the plugs were new, so unfortunately you'd have to assume that the issue was further down. After getting the motor apart, we discovered that the cylinder heads, I put them on a bench, poured some thinners in combustion chambers, and one of them, I was pouring in the fluid and it was coming out just as fast as it was going in, so I was like, well, that valve doesn't seal very well. And then I did it all in one bank, and 30 seconds, they're all empty. I was like, so that one's not good. And I did it the other one, it took a bit longer, but not as good. So what I've done is I've taken the heads off the motor. They're sitting over there. They've both been, I've put the grinding paste through them, cleaned them all up, and done another, I think it's called a leak down test, and they all hold fluid now, so the heads are all good. Well, good. I did see some of the valves had pitting, and it was like, I don't know if this motor's that good. I think this motor's been sitting for a very long time. Some of the cylinders have some pretty good pitting in them. So yeah, we had oil smoke and no compression. So what we're going to try and do, and this motor will be running by the end of this video, so help me God, and I'll show you this in a second. Pretty much because we're going to go back to doing work next week, so a little bit of a, let's see if we can get this to live again. If you've ever seen a movie called Basketball with the guys who created South Park, there's a scene where they're trying to save the kid who's not actually dead. And it's just, live, damn it, live! And they're stabbing him with like electric shock, and that's what we're going to try and do with this. We're trying to get this motor to live again. So, yeah, we're going to pull the pistons. I've got new rings, managed to get them before the shop shut. So we've got new rings. I'm going to hone all the cylinders. Don't care. The bearings look very tired. So we're just going to hone it, new rings, slap it all back together, put it back on the test stand, and fire it back up and see what it'll do. I mean, if we get more than 4 cylinders running, and we don't dump oil smoke out the back, I call that a win. But I don't think this block is very good anymore. It's already at 30 thou, and Cleveland's not really fond of going much more than that, 40 thou. And I think I've heard some go to 60, but you don't want to be doing too much with them at that point. I think the cylinder walls start getting very thin. So this motor, the block, is probably pretty well cactus. But if we can get it to live again, that's a bonus. But if not, you know, I've got another block over there. That's a virgin bore, and we can rebuild that one in with all the guts out of this one or something. Interestingly enough, we ran it up and the cam ran in beautifully. But considering it was only running on 4 cylinders, cam didn't really serve a purpose. But it did run in perfectly. So we had it running for about an hour and a half. Where I did the theory of let it get up to temperature, let it cool right down, up again, down again. See if the rings came good. No, they didn't. I even tried dumping a bit of oil down the cylinders that weren't doing anything to see if the oil would seal up to get a couple of, you know, get the compression back, but nothing. So it is what it is. Well, I'll show you the motor and we'll show you what we're getting up to. Now I apologise for the lighting, because in this shed we've got these skylights which are just making things awful. So this is what we're looking at. You wouldn't even, oh, the shed light's not even on. Excuse me a second. Here we go. That might make it better. But what we're looking at, it's going to be hard to see, but we're not looking at a terribly healthy motor. Oh, there you go. There's some, yeah, you can see where they've been sitting for a long time. See all the rust in there? So, yeah. I only found out recently that this supposed good motor has been sitting for an exceptionally long time. My brother's owned it for about 5 years, and he hasn't done a thing with it in that time. And then it sat for a couple of years prior to that, and then it came out of a modified Falcon Ute, and then it originated from an XC wagon. So, and then obviously the bearings are dated 1987, and as you can see, some of them are not looking pretty. I mean, the pistons look okay-ish. Yeah. Interesting to note, one of the oil rings is lined up with the middle gap, so we'll have to fix all this. But it's obviously sat somewhere to pick up a lot of surface rust on the rods, so that's unfortunate. But if we can get it to live again by the end of today, which we will, because I'm not going home until this is running again, I think we will have performed a near miracle. So first things first, we're going to pull all the pistons, and then I'm going to start honing it, and then after that we start reassembling and put it back together. So I'll catch you up in a second. Really hoping you chaps can see this, but that's what we're looking at down one of the cylinders, and yes, it does show up in camera. We're not talking about a show-stopping engine, but that is the one that is the most concerning. I know that cylinder was doing quite literally nothing, and I suspect I know why. Because not only did it have that issue in there, but also its valve seats were the worst ones of the bunch. So I'm thinking that wherever it's sat somewhere very, very wet with the valves open on that cylinder, which is unfortunate. But oh well, we'll see what we can do. We'll see if we can make magic out of this. But that's one bank out, let's get the other ones out. Alrighty chaps, I've honed one set of cylinders, and pretty much what I suspected was, I don't have high hopes for this engine. Some of the pitting in here is really deep, and there's some big grooves in these things, so I mean, we're just trying to perform a miracle and get it to live again. Cleaning up the pistons, so we got, you know, they're honed as good as I can do. I'm not a machine shop or a trained mechanic, I'm a panel beater, but this one's had the piston sitting at the top and it's pitting right at the top corner, and these have all had, that is a really deep groove right there in the top of the cylinder. So, and I don't really want to hone it too much, otherwise you start making the cylinders a little bit bigger. So, and I've checked my ring gaps, they're all good. So they're all done. I'm just going to hone the other side. I've cleaned up one piston, ready to go, and it's got new rings on it now. So they're all moving around beautifully. So that's all we can hope for really, is just a new set of rings and a hone, and the valve seats all been reground, so there's no way it can't run worse. I mean, it's not physically possible to go make it worse than it was. So in theory it can only be better. If we get it to run on 8 cylinders and not smoke its brains out, I consider that a win. Don't know about you chaps, but you know, I think this was a thing done way back in the day. They used to re-ring motors a lot. But I don't know, I'm just winging it, seeing if I can get it to live again. I've seen far worse done. So yeah, let's keep on cracking on. Right chaps, I've done all the pistons except this one, and I was going to run you through putting the rings on. When you buy piston rings, they're horrendously simple. Some have different labelings, but this one's got 1, 2, 3, and you can pretty much work out which one's which. Also read your instructions. The little dot always faces upwards, and if you work out 3, then obviously that's 2 and then that's 1, so 1, 2, 3. You have your ring is in 3 parts. You got a middle and a top and a bottom. So I worked out by trial and error that if you look at it carefully, it's got little feet on either side. I don't know if it's going to show, but this goes in first and the 2 rings sit kind of on top of it. You just walk that one on like that, nice and free. This next one on the bottom, nice and free. Top one, for that one anyway, yeah, nice and free. And then what you want to do, and I'll check it when I'm a bit closer to doing it, you find the middle of, I think it's a scraper, yeah, there it is, and you're going to want to make sure this top run, it should be fairly straightforward, there it is, that's going to be about 1 inch off that side of it, and then this one's going to be, if you can get it to turn around, if you read your instructions it will tell you as well. So there's the middle of the center, there's the top, and there's the other side, so they're all spaced apart. Second ring, very hard to see, but there's a little etching of a circle. Pliers. Oops, if you slip a little bit, doesn't matter. Still slipping. Still slipping. Of course this does it right when I'm trying to show it. Oops, too far. Gone too far this time. There we go. You want to make sure they're nice and free, and double check that it's facing the right way up. These top rings
according to the instructions, doesn't matter which way they go in because they're the same top and bottom. There we go. And of course, which way is the front there. So you want one that way, you want one that way, and then obviously the other ones will be gapped. Move them down to do them first. So they're in there. This guy over here, and this guy. You all want them about. So that one over there, that over there, and then what I was going to do, and I did it when I built my motor, is I was going to douse that in oil with my little dripper, compression, spring compressor, pop it in, slap it into the piston, into the cylinder, and off we go. But that's just a quick rundown of how to put piston rings on. I'm sure plenty other more professional people have done it, but that's me who's not a professional showing you how to do it. So, and I like to go, yeah, they're loose, which means they're not gummed up or anything. You don't want them to get sticky or get stuck. And yes, I just realised to line them up, but you know, I like to prove that they're not going to be a problem. So we'll catch up in a second once they're back in. Right, all the pistons are back in. There's new rings, the cylinders have been honed as best I can, pistons have been cleaned. Slap the heads on in a second, and manifold, sump back on the ground, back on the stand, and fire it up and see what happens. Fingers crossed, everything goes smoothly. Anyway, I'll keep on keeping on. We'll slap some heads on now, and see how we do. We're all facing front, cool. Front, just making sure. Also noticed that number 5 at some point in time used to be number 7 because I had a 5 and a 7 written on it, but once I'd done all the other ones I worked out was the only one left, so they're all in their locations. So we'll catch you up in a second. Right chaps, we're making good progress. Heads are on, torqued down, rockers on, torqued up, manifold on. I've had the worst trouble with this inlet manifold I've ever encountered with one of these gaskets. Not only does the manifold weigh about 1,000,000 kilos, but no matter how much goo or seal you put in here with the thing, just keeps spitting the gasket out every single time. I've had the gasket in and out about 35 times. I just gave up, and the front one just kept falling into the inlet, so I took it out and used my last little bit of ultra black and just put a bead in there. Unfortunately, I did very slightly break the intake manifold gasket on number 7, so I can see this manifold coming off in the near future if we get that far, but I'll put a bit more of the goo around there, and hopefully that's going to hold it together for now. I'm going to run this motor whether it's working or not. That's the aim of the goal for this video. So what we're going to do is stick the rock cover gaskets on, rock covers on, rotate the motor upside down, put the sump back on, get it off the stand, put that trans back on it, put it back on the test stand. So we're pretty much, and the carbie's bolted down, so we're nearly ready to fire it up again and see if I made it better or worse. I don't know if I made the inlet manifold gasket better, but you know, you can't win everything, so at least it's not a showstopper if I have to change it again. But you win some, you lose some, and I apparently lost that one, but everything else has been winning. So we'll probably catch up in a second when it's on the ground. Told you I'd catch up at the end with it. About ready to fire up. All the oil's in, leads are on, plugs are on, headers are on, trans on, everything's back to how it was, and I'm feeling a little tired. It is now 6 o'clock and I started this at 10 to 11 in the AM, and I walked into a block with no sump and 3 pistons missing, and now it is complete again. So we're about to chuck some fuel in it and see if it'll make noise again. Fingers crossed, eh? Right, well, we've got a couple issues. One, I absolutely messed up the intake manifold gasket when I put it in, because there was a huge vacuum leak coming from sort of up the front, but that's because I had the intake manifold in and off about 400 times while I was having a mental breakdown trying to get it in. But that is not what we initially pulled the motor down for. That's just a happy byproduct, and I can fix that very easily. That's not a big issue. The issue with this motor was an excessive amount of oil coming out of that pipe there, which it doesn't anymore. And yes, it's a little bit hot. It's also hotter than the day we ran it. Also, the other issue was it was only firing on 4, occasionally 5 cylinders. Now we have all 8. I could pull each plug and listen to it change, and I was very happy to hear that. Not only did I notice immediately that that pipe started getting dark where it wasn't before. Look at that, it's starting to puke. Oh well, I thought it was getting a bit hot. The other thing we noticed is now that it's running on all 8, it's now running a hell of a lot hotter than it was. But not the end of the world. It was all a gamble. I mean, I walked in this morning, this was on the stand with 3 pistons out of it, and I've continued to pull the rest of them, hone it as you well know, put new rings, put it all back together and try and fire it up before the end of the day, and I have succeeded and solved the issue of the oil and the cylinders not firing. So I think that's a win despite everything. I know it wouldn't idle, it's because the vacuum leak in the intake manifold is just basically allowing far more air than it needs to going in there, but we got there in the end. Not bad considering it's been made out of parts. And yes, I had a feeling that might happen. Oh well. I still consider that a win. That is a win, massive win, because when we fired it up on Tuesday, it was an epic fail. So that pretty much concludes the first video of 2021 with a nice little engine run. And yeah, it was a huge gamble, so I'm not that upset that some stuff went wrong, but I'm pretty happy that we have 8 cylinders again. And it, with a couple of good blips on the throttle, it does sound like it might be quite a happy little engine. Although we did work out it was rebuilt last in 1987 and probably didn't do a whole lot since then. So, anyway, I'll wrap the video up here. Oh look, my hose is leaking. Oh well. Anyway, catch you on the next one, which we should be straight back into rust repairs next week for the good old times. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for a good year.